Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are a little late with this show, but we have Colorado Workforce Development Council in the house. We ran into some snow, which prevented you guys from getting here for show, which, you know what? It's Colorado. It's February. It happens.
It does.
Yes. So we are excited to have in studio with us Britta Blodgett. People probably want to know your last name. She's the Senior Communications Strategist for the Colorado Workforce Development Council and a frequent host with us now. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it's always good to have you in studio.
Thank you for having us for a makeup after the snow debacle.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. We also have in studio Steve Wright, who is the Governor's Summer Job Hunt Coordinator / Youth Coordinator with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. So how are you doing, Steve?
I'm great. Thanks for having us in today, and thanks for focusing on the early part of the youth talent pipeline for jobs.
Yes, absolutely. And you have a pretty cool title there, the Summer Job Hunt Coordinator.
It is a cool title, but it's actually bigger than that. It's a year-round program. So
okay.
It's just a historical title that goes back to 1981. So.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess we could maybe change that at some point, right? Or do you enjoy having it?
There's a name recognition, so we'll leave it alone.
Perfect. I hear ya. So, Britta, what is going on with CWDC this month?
Well, one of the things that we're excited about is that February is CTE month, or Career and Technical Education month. And that is really, I think, an important part of the early part of the pipeline, the talent pipeline in Colorado. And CTE is educational opportunities for students in middle school, high school, and post-secondary, and it focuses on contextualizing academic standards and providing relevant technical knowledge and skills to prepare students and learners for careers and jobs. And CTE in Colorado is a little bit distinct in that it is housed within the Colorado Community College system, which is a great opportunity for alignment and building stronger career pathways. And they are really focused on this CTE month in helping to grow their strategic plan. So they are doing some specific events. They're developing a statewide strategic vision. And so they are having sessions where they want to get feedback from community members across the state. So there's actually one today in Denver.
Awesome.
As well as on February 21st in Grand Junction, February 25th in Sterling, February 26th in La Junta, February 27th in Alamosa, and February 28th in Colorado Springs. And those will be from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And they're really inviting businesses, community members to come in and weigh in on what CTE could be for them so that the community college system can create a stronger vision for that across our state.
That's awesome. And I like that it's 4 to 6:30, so you are definitely being able to get those people that work during the day.
Yes, yes.
So can I come in at any time? Do I have to be there right at 4? Is it kind of open?
I believe that it is during that window. You can go to coloradostateplan.com, which is the CTE website, to learn more about those sessions.
Awesome.
The community college system is so important, and I think really provides people with great education and training to the careers that are in demand. So it's a wonderful path.
It is absolutely a wonderful path, and to see their partnership, I guess, leg of CTE out of the community college system is amazing, and I love that they're staying so cutting edge.
In addition to talking about CTE, we're excited. We hope that people will go to those sessions and weigh in on what CTE could look like in their community. We want to welcome Steve. Glad he can join us, and to talk about this early part of the career pipeline. So, Steve, can you talk a little bit about why summer jobs are important?
They're super important for lots of different reasons. I mean, first of all, just demonstrating a commitment to an employer. As a young person, it's really important. I mean, throughout your life, as you started out, you have a family at home, you have commitments at home. You may get involved with sports teams and you have commitments there, but when you get to the point where you have to work, it's a little less desirable than some of the activities you've been in the past. But you're making a commitment to employers and adults and to customers, depending on what kind of a job you end up with. So the first thing you learn is that your time is worth money. So the fact that you're earning money is important. You're also beginning to understand the importance of commitment and responsibility and being dependable. Those are all really huge life lessons that are going to serve you the rest of your life. You learn the importance of teamwork. You learn the importance of establishing relationships with new groups of people. I'll use my son as an example. He's been a gamer historically. Most of his friends from school, he spends more time online with them. So when he reached work age, we were really shocked to see how successful he was in making relationships with adults and other kids that weren't part of his group. And he thrived on it, and his grades actually increased as soon as he started working. He was kind of slipping, but he's improved quite a bit, and it's directly tied to when he started working. It's very bizarre. You also learn the importance of customer service, providing good service and taking pride in the work that you do. It's not just you. You're representing a brand and a company now, so that's all important. And probably most importantly, I think it's the beginning of when you develop your network, and your network is extremely important. When I talk to kids about first jobs, two things I tell them is use your network. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your family, your aunts, your uncles, your teachers, what you want to do and where you want to head, because getting those doors open for you is so important. And I think even us as adults, a lot of cases it's more who you know than what you know in some cases. So just being able to get a foot in the door somewhere with a little bit of direction and some passion is so huge. So.
And I feel like when we talk about work-based learning in the early part of the pipeline, sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. What is the difference between a summer job and an internship?
Okay, so a summer job is basically what it sounds like. It's something you're going to do. It's seasonal. You have downtime from school. So you're going to go work just any old job for money. It could be fast food. It could be a movie theater. It could be something in a recreation or, we have a lot of great parks here. We have Elitch's and Waterworld and things like that. So it's basically hourly employment. You're going and you're performing duties that help a company hopefully profit, and you're being paid for your services. So that's basically a summer job. An internship is a little more specific. It's typically something where there's a little more direction behind it. It's something that you're trying to learn a little bit more about an industry you're interested in. The most important thing about an internship is it's typically structured. It's got a set schedule. It's got set expected outcomes for you, more so than the employer. And it can be paid or unpaid. That's an important distinction. But you may earn an allowance, or you may earn some credit towards classes or towards a college degree. So that would be the main distinction between a summer job and an internship. But most importantly, you're learning something about an industry that you're hopefully progressing towards.
And what is the Governor's Summer Job Hunt exactly?
Okay, so the Governor's Summer Job Hunt is a statewide program in Colorado. It's been around since 1981. And basically, it provides services to any youth that's interested in the world of work. We have a system of workforce centers across the state. Right around now, this time of year, they really start gearing up and ramping up. A lot of employers are starting to make their decisions about their summer season coming up. This is when they gear up with their big hiring, things like that. So our local workforce centers typically do career preparation activities for youth. They'll do workshops. They do outreach into the schools and into places where youth gather in the community. They offer resume preparation. They offer mock interviewing services. And then our local workforce regions typically organize hiring events throughout the spring to help employers staff up for the summer. So it's mainly geared towards those employers that do more hiring over the summer. But it's really just that first interface with the world of work. And our two primary customers are job seekers and employers. So it's kind of bridging those two together.
And can you talk a little bit more about the services for businesses?
Services for businesses, sure. So the first thing we have is we have an online interface called www.connectingcolorado.com. and that's the place where our job seekers and employers can register online. When you go to that website, you're going to see two distinct buttons. One is for job seekers on the left, one is for employers on the right. And you can go in there and you can either enter as a job seeker or as an employer. As an employer, simply, you can post your jobs there. It's an online database where people can post jobs and look for jobs. Some of the services that our workforce centers provide to businesses is just, in some cases, we'll do industry-specific job fairs or we'll do employer-specific job fairs. Depends on the size of the company and what their outlook is. Again, we interface with those employers to find out what kinds of skills they're looking for in their youth employees. And we just, our local workforce centers will do preparatory services to get those youth ready for those types of jobs. So in some of our regions, like down in Colorado Springs, they do a huge job fair where they do a lot of prep on the front end. And they really prep the youth and the employers. They'll gather 60, 70 employers in a location like a hotel, and they'll bring, literally hundreds to thousands of youth through. Jeffco out in Golden, they do a really interesting thing with the school district. Their approach is to work with younger youth, kind of 8th grade up to sophomores, and they bring them through the fairgrounds, and they break theirs up into career industry pockets, and the youth go through and they learn about all the different industries. So they hit theirs on the younger end of the spectrum. So it's a mix. And our state is a local control state, so each of our regions does their activities based on what's needed in the local economy.
And can any business participate in the governor's summer job hunt?
Pretty much any business can participate.
Awesome.
If you've got jobs and if you have a need for employees, you can participate.
And if there's a business out there that is considering participating, is there anything you would tell them beyond what you've already shared, or do you have any feedback that you've gotten from businesses that you want to share?
The businesses that we've had a lot of success with, they typically have a long-standing relationship with one of our workforce centers. We have business services representatives at our local workforce centers that will work with businesses to really find out what their needs are, to help meet those needs. So if you want to have a successful relationship, come to the table and communicate. Be real clear about what you're looking for. The other thing I'll say is be ready. I know personally my program will take on an intern, and it can be difficult to take on an intern or a young person because you have to carve time out of what you're doing to really work with that person productively. And if I can share a couple experiences from what I've seen, I'll give some examples from some of my son and daughter's employment. It's really important to communicate with the youth that you're hiring. It's a two-way street. There's a lot of assumptions about young people. They're too tied to their phones. Their faces are buried in their phones. They have no skills. They have no work ethic. That couldn't be further from the truth from what I've seen. And also, I'll give an example. There was an employer that my son worked for. They would overstaff, assuming the kids just weren't going to show up. And kids would show up for their shifts, and they would end up sending a couple kids home each shift. So, be prepared and be thoughtful about what you're doing and put your expectations out there very clearly so that the youth understand what they're getting into. So those are just a couple quick tips.
Well, and I find that if you've got somebody, a young kid at home that's looking for an internship, they're pretty much a go-getter anyway. That kind of falls in line. Right?
True.
Yeah. So you're looking for people that already have those skills in place.
If you're looking to go out and work, or
And if I can share one other thing, what I've noticed, we do call-ins with 9 News and some other venues. Most of the interest we get at those call-ins and things is from like 13 and 14-year-olds because when you hit 14, technically you can work in Colorado, but there's a lot of limitations. We have Colorado labor laws that dictate kind of what you can do and can't do. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go just Google the Colorado Division of Labor website. There's a youth labor laws page, and there's a chart. It's very specific by age and by what you can do. I think what happens is a lot of kids, when they hit 14 and 15, they really want to work, but employers won't hire them because they don't think they can hire them. And they actually can in a lot of cases. So I would say to employers that are out there, take a look at some of the 14 and 15-year-olds. They really want to work, and they get really disappointed when they can't work. So if they're able and they can get there, look at some of the duties and things you have that maybe they could do, because there's a lot that they can do. So
yes, I remember at 14 and 15, I was babysitting, right? And so it was just pocket money, really. But, I sought it out and made flyers and everything. I was ready to go to work. And if you can provide more than that, and really on on-the-job training for a future career, all the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know that in this conversation about youth, it's also important to have youth and young adults at the table. So, Steve, I know you are involved with the State Youth Council. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it does?
Sure. So we have an organization called the State Youth Council. It's a subcommittee under our state's workforce board, the Colorado Workforce Development Council, and what it's really responsible for is setting kind of the policy and direction for youth employment programs and services in Colorado. It's a really interesting partnership. We have a youth executive team. We have a new chair that came, well, not new, she's not new anymore, she's been around for a while, but Jenny Smith is she's with the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce, and she runs the Denver Opportunity Youth Initiative, and her passion is to connect young people with the work that we do, and she's done a fantastic job. She's built an executive team, it's a mix of adults that work with programs like mine, and youth from across the state. So she's really engaged youth because it's really important to have youth voice into the services that we provide for youth. Think about that. So, we just don't want to create things in a vacuum. So, but anyhow, we're a youth subcommittee. We inform policy and practice at the state level around youth services in Colorado.
And so, if there were youth who wanted to get involved with the State Youth Council or who are interested in trying to find a summer job or some other kind of employment, what would you say to them?
So if you're interested in participating on something like the State Youth Council, just Google Colorado State Youth Council. There's a spot underneath the Colorado Workforce Development Council's website for them. They also have a Twitter account that they set up that they're communicating through, so you can jump in there and communicate through Twitter. If you're interested in summer jobs in general, you can connect with the Governor's Summer Job Hunt through our local network of workforce centers. If you just Google Colorado Workforce Centers, it takes you to a page that brings up a map and then a physical list of all of our workforce centers statewide. And then I also have a Summer Job Hunt Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, you can just Google or just look up Governor's Summer Job Hunt. Whenever my local areas post events or opportunities, I share them all there. So whether you're in Larimer County, whether you're in Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Aurora, wherever, you can kind of see what's going on. We keep a list there. We also keep a calendar of events on the Colorado Department of Labor's website. We have an events page, so we have a calendar that lists everything that's going on statewide.
And so you said that the Governor's Summer Job Hunt, sorry, I'm trying to speak too quickly, has been around since 1981. How many summer jobs are being secured each year through the program?
So each year, the program, typically we register between 38 and 42,000 youth each year. It's pretty big.
Yeah. And
it's, I'm very proud of that. The work that the local folks do across the state is phenomenal. They do a really great job at connecting. So since 1981, I've estimated that we've served about 1.4 million youth. I can't take credit for most of that. I've only been with the program since 2012. But typically 61% of the youth that register through the program end up in entered employment. So that's based on the stats that come back. We know a lot more get employed. They get employed on their own. Not necessarily through the program. So, but 61%. Back when I first took over the program, it was in the neighborhood of 48 to 50%. So we're actually seeing an increase in success. I think a lot of it has to do with the economy. Colorado's economy we're really leading the country. It's between 2.8 and 3.5% unemployment rate. So right now is a really great time to get work experience for anybody. So.
And I know businesses, you talked a little bit about being open to 14, 15-year-olds. Businesses might be nervous potentially about bringing someone that young on that they don't have any skills. What skills do you think young people do bring to the table?
In my experience from witnessing and talking to these kids, their technology skills are off the charts. These kids grew up with devices in their hands and in their faces, and so right there. The other thing I've noticed is, and I think a lot of it's just based on the political climate of the last 8-10 years, young people seem to be a lot more socially conscious, a lot more aware of what's going on, far more than when I was in high school. And they're just so much more prepared. When you look at what our local high schools are doing, there's so much focus on career and technical education. There's so much focus on the different organizations you can be a part of. And I really feel like the young people are a lot better prepared than we were when I graduated up, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So these kids just have ridiculous skills, and they're intelligent. Their capacity for learning, I think just, the delivery of education. I know the education system gets bashed a lot, and employers say that, these kids come in with no skills. If you really give them a chance, you're going to be impressed, in my experience. And for those 14 and 15-year-olds, as I mentioned, just be real clear about what you want them to do. Communicate their listening skills. I mean, from first grade on, these kids are doing presentations and team projects in the classroom. I've watched my kids grow up through the Littleton school system, and they do a fantastic job just preparing them to operate as a part of a team and to handle duties that are assigned. So.
I think as we continue to kind of shift and encourage more of that skills-based focused, it really is important to think about from every job you have, there are important skills that you can learn that you can carry on to other jobs, whatever you might want that to be.
Yes, absolutely. And we mentioned at the beginning those summer jobs are important, but mostly for the soft skills.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to ask you guys, we're on this subject here. First jobs, I mentioned that I did a lot of babysitting, but my first W-2, so to speak, real job, quote unquote, I was the drive-through girl at a Culver's. Yeah, and I thoroughly enjoyed that job. I don't know why. It was in the elements, right? I had the window opening and stuff, but that was where I got my customer service skill set from, and I really like to think that I have expanded that in every career that I've had since then, including this one. But what about you guys? First jobs?
I also did some babysitting and worked retail, but one of my very first jobs, I worked at a donut machine factory. So the kind of factory that makes huge building-sized machines to sell to like a, place that makes tens of thousands of donuts an hour.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah. What exactly did you do there?
Well, I very distinctly remember the first day I worked there the first time, I buffed a fryer hood.
Awesome. And
that was definitely some on-the-job training because I had never buffed a fryer hood prior to that day.
And is that come in handy? Are you great at buffing your car now? Is that?
No, but I think it taught me, attention to detail, right? There are lots of things you can learn, and just what it was like to do that all day long. So I think it can be both things. You can identify things you want and things you don't want to. But I appreciated the opportunity to work and to have that chance to learn.
Yeah. Steve, what about you?
So similarly, this is kind of creepy. My first W-2 job, I worked in a bakery. Me and another guy that I went to high school with cleaned a bakery at the end of the day. So the bakers would come in at like 2 a.m. and bake all night, and they would leave around lunchtime, and then we would come in after school and clean the bakery, which was completely disgusting. If you've ever had your shoes caked with donut glaze, had your clothes covered in anything you can imagine, but we literally would have to scrape the big wooden tables with a scraper to get all the stuff off of it, gallons of bleach on the floor, mopping, cleaning all the baking pans. It was just disgusting. But then, but how did I get that job? I got that job through networking. My neighbor up the street ran the bakery, and that bakery served a chain of grocery stores in the area. So, and then after I worked there for a while, because I was old enough, I was able to start driving the delivery truck on weekends, which was kind of cool because I made more money when I did that. But that was an interesting experience. So, as Britta mentioned, though, good experiences. You get to learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I definitely did not want to work in a bakery. I learned very quickly. So.
Yes, it's a great way to eliminate positions you definitely don't want in the future. So stay with us. We're going to be right back. We're going to add 2 new guests in the next segment. In the meantime, be sure to visit coloradostateplan.com for those CTE events that are happening all throughout Colorado. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are excited for today's show. We are talking with the Colorado Workforce Development Council, albeit a little later in the month than usual, but that was due to snow, and we're excited to have you guys join us regardless of all the weather, right? So we were talking in the last segment, we're talking about summer jobs and internships and the differences between that, and mostly how to get youth involved in the workforce as early as possible. And so you guys are doing a wonderful job with that. But we have on the phone joining us now Paul Lingo, who is training director for Independent Electrical Contractors, Rocky Mountain, as well as Chris Shipp, who is with Encore Electric. He is the superintendent there. So thank you both for joining us.
As we talk about the early part of the pipeline and ways that young adults, young people, and our people who might be transitioning careers can get into new career pathways, apprenticeships are a really important part of that. And so we wanted to bring in some guests to share information about their programs and their businesses. So we would like both Paul and Chris, if you could talk a little bit about yourself and your role and your organization. If we could start with Paul, please.
Okay, well, my name is Paul Lingo. I'm the training director here at IEC Rocky Mountain. A little bit about IEC is more than 37 years old. Our Rocky Mountain chapter has been the leading electrical and renewable energy contractor association in Colorado, representing more than 225 member companies and educating over 3,000 electrical apprentices and licensed electricians annually. We're dedicated to educating, promoting, and advancing the electrical industry. Myself, I started out as an electrical apprentice, and my contractor company, Carlton Electric, sent me to school at IEC Rocky Mountain, paid for my tuition, and supported me through my education. Since then, I had gotten my journeyman's electrical license, has been an instructor for IEC Rocky Mountain, and hung up the tools about 7 years ago and came in here to do the training director role here at the facility.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chris?
So I actually grew up in East Bay, San Francisco, where I started as an electrician back in 2000. So I'm in my 19th year as an electrician. I've actually also been an electrical instructor for the last 12 years. When I started doing the trade, I was fairly young. I just turned 21. And one of the first thing my boss taught me was that I can be an electrician anywhere because everybody needs electricians no matter where you go. And so I went down to San Diego from Northern California, and I was working as an electrician there for 6 years, got as a journeyman for California, and then moved up here in 2008, where I started teaching at IEC Rocky Mountain almost right away once I moved here. But I was already an instructor when I was in California, and I've been here. I've taught all 4 years at IEC Rocky Mountain, and as well as online. And it's I love doing electrical work. I love teaching apprentices how to do electrical work, and getting into it at a young age. I'm where I am today because of that.
So on the show and at the CWDC, we talk a lot about work-based learning, different kinds, internships, job shadowings, apprenticeships, and I think they all have value and important. But sometimes I feel like there's a bit of confusion between these different kinds of work-based learning. Could you both share what you think are kind of those essential components that make up apprenticeship?
Well, I would say that one of the key components as far as apprenticeship goes is that you get to earn while you learn. So during the day, our apprentices work as electrical apprentices throughout their contract, or whether that be residential electrical work, commercial electrical work, or industrial. Whatever it is that contractors' electrical niche may be. And then they come in here at night to learn not so much what to do, but why it's done that way. I think that that's an important aspect when it comes to the success of anybody seeking a career, simply because you not only know the application, but you know the theory behind it, and you have hands-on experience to be able to accomplish the program or the initiative.
I would say once you no, we get all levels of electricians coming through IEC, and in the industry also. At an early stage, you don't really know whether or not they don't really know whether or not this is what they want to do with their career. But being in it for as long as I can, I have a good feeling of who's in it early on, because you can tell their work ethic, you can tell that their ability to learn, their drive to learn. And so if we put it out there that if you're here to learn, there is something to learn here.
Right. And one of the things I always tell our youth or people who are interested into the trades, because I do a lot of outreach, and it's a lot of, I don't know what I want to do when I get out of high school, or I don't know what direction I need to go to sustain a lucrative career. And so I always put the emphasis on not necessarily what you want to do, but what does the world need? And so looking at the need for electricity anywhere in the world, there's only one other resource that gets used more, and that's water. And so I always push, hey, if you don't know what it is you want to get into as a career-wise, at least establish a foundation in trade so that you've got some foundation to be able to pursue some of those lifelong educational knowledge-based dreams. You have to start somewhere. And throughout apprenticeship, like I said, it's earn while you learn. And the experience that I had through Carleton Electric going through IECRM is they put me through school at zero cost to me. So when I graduated and became an electrical journeyman, I'm making a very great, lucrative salary, as well as I'm not burdened by any financial debt from my school tuition.
That's amazing. That's great. I would also ask how you find apprenticeships to be an effective approach to strengthening our workforce. You've talked a lot about some of the great benefits for the apprentices themselves, but for the business, how does that help them grow their workforce?
With the amount of work that's happening right now and in the near future, with the expansion in Colorado, everything that needs, there's not enough workforce to man every job that needs to happen. So every electrician that's out there now is overworked and not able to, take a breather and realize that this job needs to be done no matter what. So we need to work the hours to do it. Apprentices are directly helping us and learning, and everything they learn, it makes them that much more valuable on the job site. So even from the first year to the second year, all the way to fourth year, they are making huge contributions to the buildings that get built. Because if you look at every building that gets built, half, if not less, is built by qualified journeymen, and then the other half or more is getting built by the apprentices that the journeymen are overseeing.
Wow.
So they make a huge impact of what they do for our industry.
Yeah, and grooming them along the way. Apprenticeship is about progression. So grooming them along the way from entry-level apprentice to that more seniored or seasoned apprentice. You also not only have a more robust knowledge base, but also leadership skills, the availability or the ability to maneuver around certain obstacles within your day or within that job site, and be resourceful to keep moving forward regardless of those obstacles. And so giving them a hands-on experience as well as the education needed when they do become that professional, they're getting a number of valuable knowledge-based resources or professional development classes under their belts just by going through the apprenticeship process.
And I would like to add that the more you put on them, the more they'll strive to get better. So the apprentice becomes the journeyman, or the journeyman becomes the foreman becomes the superintendent becomes the business owner or project manager. There's always a next step. But if you don't want to take that next step, nobody's making you. You can be a journeyman for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and be happy with yourself. But if you want to take that next step, there's always those building blocks that are ahead of you.
There's a real career pathway.
Absolutely. The goal is to go through the apprenticeship, get done with that education knowledge drop and kind of industry standard that work is to be performed at. And then once you become that professional, like Chris had stated, it's sustainable even if you stay at that level. But the ultimate goal, at least through apprenticeship, is the progression to that level.
You've talked about some of the benefits to apprenticeships, and it sounds like there are many. Do you have specific examples of apprentices who have been a great fit for the program and what made that work so well?
Absolutely. And I'll just give you an example of something that it happens every year. We take a look at our graduating student body that has completed the 576 hours of apprenticeship school that we offer. And we can see the differences from when they started as a first year to where they've developed as a fourth year. So we have a very great alumni program here at IEC Rocky Mountain because those apprentices know our program and know the processes and the flow of class, have demonstrated that they can not only start apprenticeship but complete it, maintain employment throughout their apprenticeship. I offer them instructor positions if they're able to obtain that journeyman's license. So it's not just here's a trade, good luck. It's here's a trade, and now that you know it, let's give back to the industry and help educate and do a knowledge drop on our next generation of electrician. And so that's what I really appreciate about apprenticeship is you get a lot more draw-in or buy-in on the back end from people that have to go through it. They understand that you have to put skin in the game and that you have to be vested in the initiative to be able to accomplish or complete apprenticeship.
You also create all these relationships too. I graduated from electrical school almost 15, 10, 12, maybe 13 years ago. I started 15 years ago. And just some of the people that I was sitting next to for 4 years, I'm still in contact today. So you build relationships, you build professional and contacts and people that you know. I have people calling me all the time that I went to school with or that I've met over the years, whether I've had them in my class or I've worked with them. You just constantly keep those relationships to help with your career.
And this is Steve. I think when just from looking at some of the national statistics and talking to some of the apprenticeship programs here in Colorado, the completion rates and success rates, they're over 90% in these apprenticeship programs. And when you compare that with dropout rates in high school, and when you compare that with the rates of people who enter post-secondary education towards a 4-year degree, I think only maybe 25 to 35% of the people that actually enter a freshman year finish a 4-year degree. So I think one of the big pieces of that is
on top of that, over 40% work in the field they graduated from.
True, and the other piece to that is I think a big part of it is the mentorship that's in place for that apprentice and the direct supervision. When you look at people entering the workforce, like you said, so many people change jobs. A lot of it's because you're not getting that one-on-one support and direction. And when you look at the apprenticeship model, it's there the whole time. And so I think that really contributes to that success rate.
I also wanted to ask Paul and Chris, who is involved in making an apprenticeship successful? So obviously you have your training program and the business. What are the different roles and who's involved in ensuring it is effective?
So you have a lot of buy-in from the companies that send the students through the schools. So the owners of the companies or the superintendents or the foreman or the journeyman, the way that you always have to look at an apprentice is the more they know, the better my job's going to be. The more they are able to help me, the more work they're going to get done and right. So you don't put it all on their shoulders and say, the job's going to fail if you don't do this. No, they're learning. It's their ability to learn while they're working for you. They're not just out there putting something in that doesn't need to be there, that your company isn't paid to do. It's more of a matter of this needs to be done. They need to learn while they're doing it, And the more you teach them, the more aspects you go. I always look at it as if an apprentice starts and finishes a job, so from beginning to end, from digging all the way to the end, they've learned more than they can possibly imagine.
Right, because they get to see the processes of that type of work from step one all the way to fruition. One thing that I can tell you about just the need for electrical worker, and the buy-in and why it's such an important thing to the contractors is that every company wants to grow and expand. If we do not implement a strategy to bring in new workforce and develop a strategy or a process for success with them, then they won't stay with that company. And so I think that ultimately, when these contractors are hiring their workforce and sending them to school, they're really investing in that apprentice to say, hey, look, I'm willing to give you every piece needed so that you can be that detrimental person that I'm going to need on my job site. I need a leader when you graduate from apprenticeship school so that you can lead others. And so I think by communicating that initiative to the up-and-coming workforce, they see a little bit more buy-in as far as not just a lucrative career, but a career that they can make an impact in.
One important thing too, Paul, and I think you'll agree with this, is one of the reasons why the electrical field is so important is if you look at every other trade, they might not be on a job for the entire duration. Right? If you have drywallers are there after all the walls are up, everything's going. Plumbers are there at the beginning and at the end. If a job is running for a year, electricians are there for a year.
Absolutely. We're the first ones on the job sites and the last ones to leave.
I know it sounds like there are lots of advantages, especially in the electrical industry. And I know we have more and more businesses adopting the apprenticeship model in a variety of industries across Colorado. I wonder what you all would say to a company considering hiring an apprentice.
Well, I would say to remember, at least in the electrical contractor sense, is that every business owner that's out there as far as an electrical contractor was once an apprentice. Okay, so I would say the importance of bringing in apprenticeship or establishing apprenticeship program within an organization is going to help you check the box as far as initiatives and directives, not just to be followed, but then to be implemented by somebody else down the road. It's a bit of succession, if you will, where you can know that through training and on-the-job application that you feel confident in that individual when it comes to them going out one day to doing it on their own.
I can tell you from experience, my very first day as an electrician was probably one of the hardest days I ever had to work, just from the sheer magnitude of what I was doing. And then I showed up the second day, and my boss said, wow, you're a keeper. After going through what you went through yesterday, I didn't expect to see you back today. So that's one way of looking at it is you look into that dedication that you can find early on in their career and see how far it will take them.
Yeah, they're going to get out of it what they put into it.
Do you feel like there are if someone is interested in an apprenticeship, are there other prerequisites, would you say?
Well, I would say some of the things that one should prep for if they're interested in getting into the electrical trade is we're going to start you off from the very beginning. So don't expect to know everything right away. Electrical work is complex. Another thing that I would say is to get into the apprenticeship, brush up on some basic math skills. It's something that we use every single day is math and all different types, whether that's algebraic or trigonometry. I would say brush up on math because I see as a training director, that's really when we get apprentices in, that's where they struggle the most.
And probably prepare yourself for some heavy lifting sometimes.
Like stretch. You might want to stretch. Yeah.
So math and stretching, the two.
You got it. One thing to remember, too, about electrical work is that electricity is needed at all times. And it's never just right at your fingertips. It's either in the ground, in the wall, up in the ceiling, in the dirt, right, on a pole. And so electrical work can be a bit of a contact sport. So I would just let individuals know that, it's not a behind the desk type of job. You're out there building our world, not sitting behind it.
There are a lot of us who use energy, so.
Yes. Yes.
All of us do. So
Yes.
all of us do.
Yep.
It'll be a dark day tomorrow if we don't have electricity, I promise.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Do either of you have any last thoughts?
I would just want to again just highlight just the advantages of getting into a trade. You do have to, in every trade, go through this thing called apprenticeship, okay? And it's so that we can instill attention to detail, instill a knowledge base, instill punctuality, and instill a draw or buy-in into what you do. You find that most people attrit or decide they want to go to a different company is either one of two things, either that they have a horrible supervisor or they don't feel they have significance or a value add within their organization. As an apprentice, you're working on that value add every single day, and it's something that you never stop doing. I can tell you that there is a huge difference between a first-year apprentice and a fourth-year apprentice. Okay, a first-year apprentice is speaking almost unconsciously incompetent about what's going on, but at the fourth level, they're speaking consciously competent about what they're doing, and they can then transfer that knowledge base to the next generation. So it's just something that you can always pass forward. You can always instill that energy and that passion to approach your workday positively and proactively. That's one thing that you learn as an apprentice is you got to be prepared for your day. So the electrical industry is in desperate need of new workforce and manpower. And I want to encourage anyone that's interested to contact us over here at IEC Rocky Mountain, and we can see if we can find a pathway to get you in and get you employed and get this apprenticeship started.
Great, thank you. As we've talked about this today, the early part of the talent pipeline apprenticeship, Steve, how can businesses sign up to participate in the summer job hunt or get involved in apprenticeships or other forms of work-based learning?
So we have lots of different angles for that. First, if a business is interested, you can visit our website where it's our gateway. It's www.connectingcolorado.com. We also have an apprenticeship-based website that just launched recently. It's called apprenticeshipevolution.com. It's another site that's kind of a gateway and a resource. Those are the easiest ways. You can also contact our local workforce centers. Just Google Colorado Workforce Centers. It'll take you to a map and a list of all the workforce centers that are participating.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure having you on. And once again, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page while you're here. And you can find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Type in Colorado Workforce Development Council or CWDC for all of the past shows. Thank you so much. Have a great day.